Support for this episode comes from Omnipod. It used to be that you would have to choose between an automated insulin delivery system and the freedom of a tubeless device. Now, with Omnipod 5, you can have the best of both worlds all in one. Omnipod 5 adapts with every pod change to meet your unique insulin needs and adjusts insulin using a customized target glucose, not a range. If you're ready to ditch the multiple daily injections or send your tubed pump packing, there's never been a better time. They'll even check your insurance coverage for you. Fill out the quick online form, see if you're eligible for a free trial. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Omnipod logo. For full safety risk information and free trial terms and conditions, visit omnipod.com/diabetesconnections.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, Medtronic and Abbott are joining forces, and we have questions. The announcement that Abbott will create a new CGM based on the Freestyle Libre exclusively for Medtronic comes just as Medtronic gets FDA approval for its newest sensor. So why the team up? Why now? And what will all of this look like for the person actually using these systems? We're talking to both companies. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Hey everybody, welcome to another week of the show. You know we aim to educate and inspire about diabetes with a focus on people who use insulin. I'm your host, Stacey Sims, and we have been doing this show for almost 10 years now, and it's always still really interesting to get these technology updates. It's hard to remember, but when we started the podcast way back then, no closed loop systems, nothing approaching that unless you were DIY, which was really just on the cusp of that kind of a breakthrough. CGMs still had to be calibrated a couple of times a day. Most people were not using them. They certainly were not getting them at diagnosis. And nobody with type 2 was talking about CGM. It's just changed so much. And I am still really excited to talk to these companies, bring them your questions, and do episodes like this. Before we jump in, I do have to give you a quick Mom's Night Out update. Denver is less than a month away. If you're thinking about coming, please register ASAP. Check-ins are going to open soon for the Philly event. That's in October. Mom's Night Out, of course, is our event for moms of kids with diabetes and more women with type 1 adults. We're opening the event up after a lot of requests for that. It is full of education, technology, community, and cocktails. And you can get all the information at diabetes-connections.com. Click on the Mom's Night Out or the Events tab. Okay, for a long time now, one of the big buzzwords in the community has been interoperability. We're trying to get this thing to talk to that thing, to work with this other thing. People have been talking about that since my son was diagnosed back in 2006. So now we have insulin pumps that work with 3 different CGMs, and more companies are looking for that kind of flexibility. That's why it was honestly a surprise when Medtronic and Abbott announced they were teaming up for what is going to be a more exclusive proprietary partnership. Quick background here. I think it's really important to lay some groundwork. I will try to do this quickly if you are familiar. But earlier this month, these 2 very large diabetes companies announced that they would work together on a new CGM that would work with Medtronic pumps and pens. It would be based on the Freestyle Libre hardware. Abbott is creating it, but it would work only with Medtronic. So you're not going to be able to mix and match this. And you're not going to be able to take a Libre 2 or 3 that's on the market right now and use it with a Medtronic system. Okay, at the same time, Medtronic announced that it had received approval in the US for its Simplera sensor. Now, that's been in Europe for a few years now. It is a lot smaller, and it has features that Medtronic users have been asking for a long time. We will talk about that more in the interview. But the Simplera that was just approved is for use with the Medtronic InPen system. Another sensor, the Simplera Sync, is still in front of the FDA, and that is for use with Medtronic 780G pumps. So why, if Medtronic already has 2 different sensors, why this proprietary new CGM? And that's what we're talking about with my guests this week. They are Ali Dianati, Senior Vice President, Product Innovation and Operations from Medtronic Diabetes, and Dr. Anila Bindal. She is the Associate Medical Director of Abbott Diabetes Care. Thanks as always for the questions you sent in. I love getting questions in the Facebook group. If you're not there already, It is Diabetes Connections, the group. And I got to tell you, it is a privilege. I love it. I love bringing your questions to these newsmakers. Okay, that interview is coming up right after this. Managing diabetes doesn't need to get in the way of your passion, your social life, or your budget. Edgepark can help you simplify your diabetes journey so you can focus on other important things. Edgepark offers a wide array of continuous glucose monitors, such as the Dexcom G7, Freestyle Libre 3, and more. Plus, Edgepark accepts most insurance plans and handles the paperwork. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Edgepark logo to learn more. Dr. Anila Bindal, Ali Dayanati, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. Big announcement, lots of information out there. Thanks for spending some time with me and my listeners.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You got it. Ali, let me start with you. I'm going to ask you both the same question. High level, 50,000 foot view. What is Medtronic excited about this new partnership?
I mean, number one is to give options to patients that we couldn't provide before. And so clearly, knowing that, the Abbott-based sensor is the most widely used across the globe, it opens up a lot of doors, not only for us, but of course for people living with type 1. And so that's the biggest advantage to deciding to do this for us, in our opinion.
Dr. Bindal, same question. What about Abbott's point of view here?
Yeah, it is going to echo actually what Ali was just saying. But, Abbott and Medtronic are two global diabetes leaders globally. And being able to collaborate on an integrated CGM that works with our world-leading CGM that works exclusively with Medtronic. And that's really a big win for people living with diabetes, where they're able to have more choices, like Ali was saying, and also just being able to use devices for them that are connected to one another that they prefer. That's really a huge win for people with diabetes.
As I read this release, it seems like the CGM that Abbott will create for Medtronic is going to be built off existing hardware, but will be something unique. Are there any features or anything that's not in the current Libre portfolio that we'll see coming to this newer sensor?
So we don't have a lot of details to be able to release quite yet on that, but as they become available, we're pretty excited to share those as well.
Got it. And Ali, let me ask you, you have a sensor. You have a new sensor that was just FDA approved. And I know we're waiting, if I'm correct, the one that was just FDA approved is for use with Medtronic in pens. And the other Simplera that we're waiting on FDA approval for will be for use with the 780G. With that, why do you need this partnership?
I think, again, it comes back to just the reach that we can achieve. And so people want options for a lot of good reasons. And we wanted to increase the number of options that we have for folks. And we are absolutely excited about our Simplera Sync, though it's still in the middle of, at least in the US, FDA approval cycles. In Europe, it's doing exceptionally well. As far as we're concerned, it's more to provide options than it is to do anything else.
Other than the people that are already familiar with the Libre brand, as you said, very popular around the world, lots of people use it, but this is a new CGM. This is not going to be the Libre people have on their arms right now. Ali, what option then would it bring to people? Is there something different that's going to be in this sensor, or is it more that people are familiar with Libre and perhaps know it more than the Medtronic Simplera? I'm trying to figure out what you mean by options.
Yeah, so it's more a function of the ability for us to collaborate means that at least within the Medtronic ecosystem, they would have option. And so both in the case of an NPen system today, it is the NPen, works with our sensor. It works with Dexcom, and now it's going to work with the Libre as well, or a Libre type sensor. So that means that anybody that is interested in using the NPen can basically use pretty much every CGM that's out there. And then as it relates to our AID, as you know, historically speaking, it was closed only to our own sensors. And so now there's an opportunity for them to use a Libre-like sensors. And truthfully, that means that there's the differences that exist here, of course, on specs and whatnot. But then the other side of it is access. There are places where, we have preferred access within our construct, and there are places where Abbott has preferred access. And so that's why it opens the door for other options.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of, so Tandem t:slim users can now decide what CGM they want to use, right? They can use a Dexcom or they can use a Libre. down the road, they might be able to use Eversense or other CGMs that are out there. In fact, they can use the Dexcom G6 or the G7. So I guess there are 3 currently. When we're talking about choice and options, there are pretty significant different features of those 3 CGMs, though. And I know you can't share the details. You've already said that. But is that what you're talking about? Something similar like that, where the consumer can say, okay, these have slightly different functionalities, so I can pick one of those?
What I've learned from my own patients is really that some of them have certain needs that they are like, I can't do without this. And then there's someone else who says, I don't need that at all. I really need this. And I think what's really wonderful about being able to give people choice is it really aligns with what they specifically need. And sometimes it's at that stage of, where they are in their life that they need this very particular feature that might be, available on one or another. So for some people, it might be they might be attracted to the fact that it'll be really small. For other people, it might be something else. And so that's exactly what I mean by patient choice, is really having it aligned with what they personally need and making it really aligned with, at that point in time, what do I need to be able to manage my diabetes in a slightly easier and more effective manner?
Got it. This is a little bit off topic, but while I have you here, Dr. Bindel, I have to ask. One of the things I heard a lot when I was at ADA this year was, will we see CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, that monitor other things like ketones? I know I'm going off topic here. Can you share? I mean, I know Abbott is developing things like that, or at least researching that. Anything to share? Any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are really excited about our glucose ketone sensor. It'll be the first sensor that actually has the ability to integrate both measuring glucose and ketone within the same sensor. We think it's going to be probably the next big advancement for people living with type 1 diabetes, and really a true breakthrough as well. So we're really excited about that.
It's so interesting, especially with the medications now. I used to think, why the heck do you need to monitor ketones 24/7? But when you think about certainly some of the medications that have come out that people are using, you want to make sure for that. I don't want to give the PR people a heart attack. Is there any timeline on that?
When more information becomes available, we'll be happy to share it as well.
I appreciate that. I have to ask.
Absolutely.
And I'll though back to you. I mean, I think there is, I think my listeners have expressed frustration. They asked me to ask you about interoperability because the Medtronic ecosystem, as you said, has always been closed, right? You had a pump with a sensor that only worked together. And I think when many people heard that you're going to be working with Abbott, the feeling was like, wow, this is really going to open things up and make interoperability part of the Medtronic ecosystem. And it's not the case. And I'm wondering if you might address that because, as I said, I think a lot of people really thought that when this partnership was announced, they'd be able to take a Libre 2 or the upcoming Libre 3 ICGM and use it either with this pump or that pen and this pump, but it's staying closed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we made this decision more along the lines of, as competitors, we didn't want to create problems with one another. And so we decided to do it this way so that it's clear and it's understandable in terms of where things are going. Though it may be perceived as closed, for us, it's truly opening it up. I mean, the bottom line is that people will have the option to go either way. And yes, it'll be unique to our ecosystem, but the intent is for people to not have any trade-offs or need to make any trade-offs as a result of that. So they'll get the benefit of either smart MDI or automated insulin dosing and have the option of either sensor.
Got it. I mean, the flip side of that is that I also heard from listeners who said, we don't care about interoperability. I want a system that works for me, that my insurance will cover, and that is easy to get to. So to that end, obviously, Medtronic sensors in the past haven't gotten the best reviews, let's face it, which is why we have this new system. I'll give you a minute. Sing the praises. What's different here about Simplera?
Yeah, I mean, a number of things. Number one is the intent that we had with Simplera was to just eliminate a lot of the burdens of the past. So taping, charging, cleaning of the sensor, all of that is now gone. And then, we're trying to make sure that on top of that, the wear and the feel of it between tape and the slimness of it on the body, trying to make it disappear, so to speak, from a CGM perspective. So all of those things have been put into the design of it to make sure that from where we have been, because, to your point, a lot of our patients that have used our product have some visceral reactions to it, mainly because, the look and feel of it have been the same since the advent of the CGM to begin with, right? And so there's like this, I'll call it like a PTSD kind of feeling of, I had the sensor 10 years ago and it was big and bulky and it hurt because, the cannula that went in the body was large, from early generations. Of course, it's improved since then to eliminate finger sticks and to perform better. But when they look at it, it looks the same. So we needed to break that paradigm as well. And so Simplera does that for us. And once again, I think seeing the results that we've seen, and we just put out our quarterly results as well from a financial perspective, and we did exceptionally well, especially with it in Europe. So we're looking forward to being able to turn the page. And now we have turned the page not only with ourselves with the Simplera, but we'll plan on doing that with the Abbott-based sensors as well.
In all fairness, I know a lot of people, including my son, who used Dexcom G4 and G5, who, if you show them the applicator, they flinch. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the same exactly.
Is Medtronic going to continue the R&D on their own sensors? Do you anticipate more improvements and maybe different measurements, ketones, things like that in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're not stopping this because of the Libre?
No, and I think we ended up where we ended up partially because we have our own sensor. It helped both ways. So yes, we're going to continue to develop.
Got it. Really interesting. Dr. Pedro, let me ask you, one of my listeners wanted to know about calibration with using a pump. And there are certainly already people out there using the Abbott CGM with insulin pumps. It's approved for that, but they were really concerned about not being able to calibrate. Can you speak to that? Right back to our conversation. But first, Diabetes Connections is sponsored by Gvoke HypoPen. Most people who take insulin have experienced low blood sugar. It can be disorienting and scary. Very low blood sugar is very scary. And that's where Gvoke HypoPen comes in. Gvoke HypoPen is a ready-to-use rescue pen for treating very low blood sugar in people with diabetes ages 2 and above. If you take insulin or sulfonylureas, you are at risk for your blood sugar going too low. Low blood sugar emergencies can happen unexpectedly, and they demand quick action. You need a safety net when it matters most. Be ready to treat very low blood sugar with Gvoke HypoPen. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Gvoke logo. Gvoke shouldn't be used if you have a tumor in the gland on top of your kidneys called pheochromocytoma, or if you have a tumor in your pancreas called insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for safety information.
The Freestyle Libre CGM is factory calibrated. That means that they do all of their testing and everything on the back end. And the idea behind it actually is really to try to have it be one less thing that users have to do, that patients have to do. I know that there are some sensors that sometimes allow people to calibrate, and actually our thinking a lot of times, and Abbott's thinking, I should say, is that if you have it factory calibrated where the company is able to sort of be responsible for that, then you shouldn't have to calibrate because the factory or the company is already doing it for you. It's sort of an intentional way of making sure that our levels are where we would want them to be. And they do all the testing on the back end. So again, they can kind of reduce that burden for people that are using the CGM and living with diabetes.
Yeah, I'm bouncing all over here in the last couple of minutes, but I'm trying to get my listeners' questions in. So Ali, let me go back to you. I just want to talk real quick about the 7-day infusion set. This is the bane of my existence since my son was 2 years old. And we started 3-day infusion sets. So I'm always a little skeptical that they work for 7 days, but they do. Can you talk to that at all, how that's going?
Yeah, they work for 7 days. That's the beauty of them. And that
we can stretch it
back.
For.
Well, that I can't tell. I think it's a fair point to say that, we spent a lot of time and effort figuring out why infusion sets were not lasting and have built that into this new version and try to make it extremely simple for people to put on the body. And, another point to make, and, just going back to the Simplera as well, part of what we were thinking about for those folks that are using the 7-day infusion set, having a 7-day sensor to match that means that, they can take a Saturday morning and make the swaps of everything at once and then kind of be done with it instead of having to, worry about this day, that day, I have to do this time, that time. They could just get on a rhythm. And that was our intention with the combination of those two products. So yeah, it's been going well. We've just started trying to increase the capacity so that we can send more out there because the demand is there for it. And so most of it is just making sure that we can get in the hands of people.
Got it. And Neela, one more question that's, as I said, I'm bouncing around here. I'd love to know a little bit before I let you go about Abbott's over-the-counter sensor that is coming out soon. I get a lot of questions about that. Is it going to be in pharmacies? Is it the kind of thing where people will go online and order it, but won't need a prescription? Will it be readily available? The idea of the convenience of going to like Walgreens and getting a CGM sounds amazing to me. Is that a possibility?
That one I have to get back to you on. So
Okay.
certainly I can give you more information about that. But with Rio, it's a sensor that is indicated for use for people with type 2 diabetes that are adults and that are not on insulin. So it's essentially for anyone who doesn't need a prescription, but they can still have access to being able to see how their glucose levels adjust based on certain lifestyle and choices that they're making. And so I can get back to you on the question about retail pharmacy, though.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Because I imagine, I know Dexcom is having it, you order it online with their over-the-counter Stelo. So I assume it would be the same. Because, I'm sure you can both understand, like one of the dreams of people with diabetes, right? Or type 1 diabetes is your sensor falls off or whatever, you don't have what you need. And rather than have to worry about a mail order prescription or a middleman or a PBM or the whole schmear, you can go to Walgreens, you get the over-the-counter CGM, you put it on, and it works with your insulin pump. I know that's not the case here, but I think that would be an absolutely incredible, convenience for patients, and that interoperability is what they really want. I don't have a question. I just want to say that to all of you. I guess the question is understanding that. Is there a world where that kind of thing can happen, or is it perhaps insurmountable because of proprietary stuff, having to make money, commercial insurance, all those kind of complications?
Yeah, I think the most important piece here is that when people end up talking, when people living with diabetes are talking about what they need, I think the companies are listening. And I think that's the most important piece, is that we're all really trying to come together as an entire community to try to figure out how to handle diabetes and the things that people need. And so the more people that are living with diabetes that make their go ahead and make your wish list, and maybe all of it may not be able to happen all at once, but I really want people to know that they do have advocates all around the world that are working on these things to help make those come true and get closer and closer to it.
The only thing that I would add, because I 100% agree with that, is that for people living with type 1, in order to really be able to have them have that dream, everything needs to be in the pharmacy, right? It can't just be one component of it, because it won't really help if it's just one component. And so I think from our perspective, we've tried to make sure that it's super easy in case a sensor falls off early or whatever else. They just go to our website and ask for one, and there's one in the mail the next day. That's how our system works today. That's as close as we can get to something like that to make sure that we're taking care of people the right way. But hopefully in the not so distant future, we can get everything there and make it super easy for them.
Great. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me to answer these questions. I'd love to talk to you again once we're a little bit further down the road. And certainly, I think probably in the more near future, maybe when the Simplera Sync is approved, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx anything. If you can come back and maybe talk a little bit more about that. But I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
I will link more information up in the show notes, but honestly, there isn't really much more out there at this time of taping than what you heard. Not a lot of information is out there. So we'll see what really happens when this comes to market. I'll make a prediction here. You know how both Libre and Dexcom have CGM sensors coming to market very soon that are over the counter, and they are the same hardware as their existing sensors, but they have slightly different software tweaks. So there are going to be a lot fewer alarms and things like that for people who have type 2 diabetes, but don't use insulin. That's the market for these over-the-counter sensors. So it's the same, but not. I think that's what this is going to be. Maybe there will be more, but I think reading between the lines, this just seems like a way to keep people in the Medtronic ecosystem, which, these companies, with our healthcare system the way it is, these companies do need to make money. They do need to keep people where they are. I really, really wish that we could just go, like I said in the interview, go to the drugstore, buy what you need, put on what you want, mix and match. But also, I'd really like for all this stuff to be accessible and affordable. So I'll get out my magic wand and we'll see what we can do. All right. Thank you to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.
I've been talking about integration for years, and it's just been wonderful to see it all happening. Dexcom G6 is part of Tandem Diabetes Control IQ system and part of the Omnipod 5 system. My son has been using Control IQ for more than 4 years now. These systems are really amazing. He sleeps better, and the system has his back when he doesn't get his meal bolus exactly right. As a mom, I will never stop worrying, but I worry a lot less. We all just think about diabetes less, which is really amazing. Learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo.